The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Global Health, Global Human Rights, and International Organizations, and the author of this bill.
I thank my good friend for
Gentleman's
yielding.
recognized.
And thank him for his leadership. I want to thank Mr. Meeks and, of course, Chairman McCall. As the prime author of the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, which I first introduced in 2014, when the umbrella revolution was occurring, we saw, many of us, that if we did not take definitive actions, Hong Kong would be lost. Well, unfortunately, Congress refused for years to bring up that bill, and we did get it enacted into law, but it was a day late and a dollar short. But this legislation, 1103, is a necessary next step in tangibly demonstrating our solidarity with the persecuted citizens of Hong Kong. I want to thank Jim McGovern, my friend and colleague, for co-sponsoring. It is a bipartisan bill. And again, I appreciate Mr. Meeks' statement just a moment ago. At one time, the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Offices in the United States represented a city whose prosperity was based on its protection of fundamental human rights and freedom of the Hong Kong people. The U.S. gifted these offices, commonly known as HKETOs for short, with diplomatic privileges and immunities on the assumption that Hong Kong would remain free from communist rule. But 3 years after the CCP imposed the national security law on Hong Kong, we must deal with this new reality. The Hong Kong all of us knew, loved, and respected is gone. The city that was once a bastion of freedom in a sea of oppression is now governed by the CCP puppets who have become as repressive as their masters in Beijing. Hong Kong unjustly detains political prisoners at a rate only surpassed by a handful of dictatorships such as Belarus and Burma. There are over 1,000 political prisoners in Hong Kong today. Renowned pro-democracy figures like Jimmy Lai. I actually chaired a hearing where he heard from his son, Sebastian, pleading with the world to speak up on behalf of his father. He is now languishing in prison. Joshua Wong, who we all met with during the great days when it looked like democracy was going to be protected, he too is languishing, as well as Tony Yi Chow and so many others who are living in these horrible gulags in Hong Kong. But most of Hong Kong's political prisoners actually are unknown. They are university and high school students, medical workers, first responders, lawyers, teachers, moms and dads, business people, journalists, and municipal policymakers, jailed and sometimes tortured for peacefully demonstrating and organizing to protect democracy and human rights. The HKETOs are complicit in persecuting them. These offices serve as Beijing's propaganda arm in the United States, defending and dismantling the freedom of Hong Kong and obscuring the truth. In addition, HKETOs help the Chinese Communist Party track exiled Hong Kong activists in our own country. Anna Kwok, the executive director of the Hong Kong Democracy Council, testified at one of my China hearings and made very clear that they are using these so-called economic leaders to track individuals and to hold family members and the like responsible back in the PRC, as well as to put bounties on these individuals. This must stop, Mr. Speaker. The United States should not be granting diplomatic privileges and immunities to a network of communist spies and propagandists. I spent a whole day reading each of the 3 HKETO websites. It was filled to overflowing with lies and deception, especially about the National Security Act, which is as draconian as any law has ever been enacted. So I do hope that members will support this. And even during last year's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco, who was organizing the counter-protests to the wonderful men and women of Hong Kong who are simply demanding freedom and democracy? Yes, it was the HKETO there. I urge members to support it and yield back.